So you got all these dudes. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out this summer. We're going to crush it. We just need some visas.
Yep.
You know, kind of waiting on that. Get housing locked down.
Mm-hmm. Everything is dialed.
Everything's dialed, paid for.
Yep.
And then we find out that we're not getting visas.
Yep.
What up, Solar Pros? Welcome to The Pursuit. I'm your host, Josh Holland. Today's guest, our boy, Hameed Hewaidi. How you
Thanks
doing,
for having me, man.
Bro, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Came in from Lubbock. What time did you land this morning?
I got here at 9:30, 9:45. I didn't even know I was coming. Tristan booked my flight like yesterday. But
Oh, dang.
I'm excited to be here, man.
It's
Yeah.
draft day, baby.
I know.
Dude, I got the list of guys that were gonna come in, and we're like, okay, like who should we have on the pod? And I felt like I've known you for a little bit. You know, I met you at I think the first time was at the Evolve retreat.
Yep, in Hurricane.
And then I got to know you a little bit better in on the Standard retreat in
Florida.
In Florida, it was a good time. But I've kind of stayed close to me and Matt talk quite a bit, and I've known a little bit about one, how big of a stud you are, but two, some of the oppositions that you've faced this year, and like seeing how you respond to it and all those things, and then obviously like you getting out to the market and just starting to crush, bro. I mean, you're here because you're one of the top reps already, but
you guys got me off the doors, so
I know you're itching to get back, but dude, yeah. So I felt like your story is compelling, and man, wanted to get you on, so really appreciate you coming.
Thank you, man.
Like making time for it means a lot.
No, it's an honor.
Well, dude, tell us. I mean, to get started, like, let's talk about kind of your intro to door to door, and you're 23 years old. You've been in door to door for how many?
3 years.
3 years.
Yep.
Mainly lived in Canada your whole life, right?
Shout out to Canada.
Shout out to Canada, dude. But born and raised in Libya. Came over to Canada when you were
5 years old.
5 years old.
Yep.
Went to college in Canada, and that's kind of where the door-to-door journey begins.
Yes, correct.
Walk us through that. So you're in college, you're e-commerce?
Yep. No, I'm doing economics.
Economics.
I'm doing economics and finance, and just going through college, having fun. I was pretty big into basketball, so I played a lot of basketball in college, and just one of my friends had approached me, and he's like, hey, I got this direct sales gig, and it's going well for me. I'm doing well, and you should, come check it out. And it was kind of just blind faith. I was like, okay, like let's go check it out. This will be fun. Like I'm bored anyways. I didn't have much better to do at the time. So I ended up going out with him, and he kind of introduced me to direct sales. Had a few months of experience in Canada. That went pretty well. Started making a little bit of money, and
this is alarms, right?
Yes.
Okay, so alarms in Canada.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So it was really easy, man. It was just like $30 a month for a few cameras, and it was just really easy. No money out of pocket for install, and I think that's when I kind of realized the input to reward ratio with direct sales, the amount of time that you can put in versus how you could be compensated for that specific amount of time.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of opened my eyes to, leveraging my time better rather than being able to like make a salary or something. So, that's why I kind of got more interested in direct sales and made the switch down to, the States to sell solar, and been doing that for a couple of years now.
Dude. I'm curious because it sounds like your family's pretty educated, right? You said your dad's PhD?
Yep. My dad got his PhD in Ohio State. Yep.
Go Buckeyes.
Yep.
So what did he get his PhD in?
Psychology.
Awesome. Wow, that's remarkable. And then your mother?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she did some schooling as well. I think she got her associate's degree.
Okay.
Yep.
And then
I had 3 siblings. They're all, got their degrees. And a couple of them got their masters. One of them got their bachelors.
Awesome.
And I was the youngest of 4. So definitely, didn't go the the route that they did, you know,
Yeah.
with finishing my education and stuff. But I do plan on going back. You know, I talked to Brett Bushi about it and a couple other successful kind of like executives in the space, and they all, you know, preach educating yourself on whatever sort of level it is,
Sure.
whether it's a schooling level or personal level. So I definitely value education myself, but I also value a good opportunity, and solar is pretty tough to turn around.
I find it I think typically when you have you know, more a family that's, you know, like college is kind of in the blood kind of thing, not like for like crazy first generation stuff, but there's a view on door to door that's typically negative, or like, what are you doing? Like, was there any of that for you, or is everyone pretty supportive?
Man, I definitely give it to my family. They're super supportive. They always, you know, believe in my vision, that because I share it with them. I'm big on sharing with them. They know, you know, exactly what I've got going on and my goals and everything. And I definitely would say that they were very curious about it. My mom particularly, you know, she was worried about my safety, right? Moving all over the country and doing this stuff. And for my dad, he just wanted to make sure, you know, I still prioritized educating myself and developing on that sort of front in life. But yeah, no, they never really gave me a hard time about it. You know, it was always like, they always consulted me, and they didn't always agree with me, and they're very clear on that. But I appreciate having them as consultants.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, dude, I mean, I feel like a lot of times, like when you have like even a dad, you know, PhD level, that's rare.
Yeah.
They're typically like, well, why would you do door to door like that? Get a real job kind of thing. But dude, that's great. So I mean, you dive into alarms, shift into solar, get linked up with Vivant, right?
Yep.
And ship out to old Illinois.
Yes.
And just cranking for 2 summers you did there?
Yeah, I did 2 summers selling solar with Vivant. And yeah, basically they had a visa program where they would have Canadians, you know, because Vivant was in Canada as well before they sold their Canadian operations to another company. And their sales reps in Canada, they still had a huge sales force that was really successful. So they started doing this visa program, having them come down to the United States. And luckily I was one of the people that, you know, was recruited to come down. And first summer I did, you know, Florida and Texas. Okay. Second summer I spent most of my time in Illinois. That's where I met, you know, Taylor doing a training for y'all. And
Taylor McCarthy.
Yep. That's where I also met Josh Slider.
Nice.
And yeah, that's where, you know, we were already selling Freedom.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with a lot of people here, like, oh, Vivint, they must have had their own install, like, because it's Vivint, you know, like big name, but they were actually just a sub dealer of Freedom.
Correct. So they're essentially a dealer when it came to the energy side. They're fully integrated when it comes to the alarm side. But when it comes to solar, you know, they use different installers, and obviously Freedom is the biggest and safest option and the most transparent. So that's the installer I worked with, you know, during my time there. And yeah, when the opportunity kind of presented itself to work for Freedom internally, you know, with Solar Pros and the deal that they have and the growth that they have, it was a no-brainer.
Well, because Vivint, there was a little parting way there, a little contention, but we don't need to go into too much detail. But I mean, basically, they're not a dealer of Freedom anymore.
Nope.
And it sounded like that was kind of a deal breaker for you. Yeah.
So as you know, as a sales representative, when you know you're committing to a certain process, even though we're not involved with the back end, we're getting used to the back end and operation side of things and understanding how to get through the cycle, the sales cycle, and just dialing that in for a couple of years, and then hearing about the issues and that Freedom and Vivint were facing. And I was Team Freedom all the way, man. I was like, cool. You know, I definitely don't want to have to sacrifice selling for the best quality installer because they had, you know, issues on an executive level. So
interesting.
Just found a way to stick with Freedom.
That's cool, man. So you find your way to pros, and this is kind of where I feel like the story gets pretty juicy. Is you've obviously had influence. Like you were, when you were at Vivint, you were running teams.
Just one team, my personal team. Yeah.
Yeah, your personal team. How many guys were on that team?
Not many, man. It was about 15.
15?
Yep.
So that was last year.
Correct. 2023 summer.
And you were cranking out in Illinois. Like you were
Yep.
you were doing really well. What was your biggest month?
42.
42. So
Yeah.
just a whole lot of accounts.
That's a great month.
That was a good month. Then you go back to Canada.
Yep.
And then you're you get linked up with pros, come on board, start recruiting for summer.
Yep.
How many guys are you on board?
Man, so when I first, sat down with Solar Pros and we talked about what it would take to be able to utilize this great international sales talent from Canada and the UK and Australia, because there's solar in a lot of places.
Yeah.
But they don't have as great of an opportunity as we do down here.
Yeah.
So we just sat down and tried to utilize, all this sales talent that would love an opportunity like Solar Pros. And we figured out, how to do it and how to bring people down on, visas. And we onboarded, I think at the peak a couple months ago, it was over 130 people. So it was a lot of work, between November, December of 23 to March, April of 24, going from just myself and understanding like the Solar Pros business model and how attractive it was to sharing that with, direct leaders and bringing everybody in together on the vision. It was a lot of work and it was exciting. But yeah, it didn't work out, unfortunately.
Well, we gotta give them a little anticipation. So I mean, dude, it's incredible. Like to be able to recruit that many people is a feat in of its own.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that. It's not very common in door to door in general.
Well, it's really easy with the growth that Solar Pros has.
Sure.
It's just like, you're getting on the fast train, and it definitely pushes you to be a part of, just inevitable growth not year over even month over month, just growing every single month kind of pushes you to your limits to grow as well and keep up.
What did you feel like were some? I mean, because Vivant's Vivant, dude. It's like it's the OG. It's the greatest door to door thing that's ever assembled. There's really no debate about that. They're obviously bred from their alarm side. The energy side's different, but you're still coming from similar stuff. Like, what was that like? Building and growing teams in that environment versus pros environment.
Yeah, good question. So at Vivant, they're the bread and butter when it came to developing direct sales team culture and company culture and incentive culture and vacation culture, all these different things, right? They were the ones that innovated that. And, you hear about the history of, those 7 close founders and what Todd Peterson did and how they recycled the company so many times with exiting in Canada and exiting Viv Solar, exiting Vivant Energy, exiting Vivant and selling that to Energy and all the different successful buyouts that they had. It was a great learning experience. I think not just for anybody that was a part of it, but even from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Right. If you're somebody that's an entrepreneur in the direct sales industry, it's like learning from that case study of Vivant and how they recycle their business model. It's great for everyone.
It's incredible.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like the people that could have maximized their entire potential in these buyouts and the people that were involved with those deals, they already crushed it. There's not that many more ways to, recycle the company and have an exit plan for that large of a sales force versus with Solar Pros and the way that they structured their compensation model and their obviously the buyout and their plans for the future and the ability for everybody to get involved. I think it's I don't remember who said it. It might have been Alex Hormozy, but getting into a company when it's at that zero to 100 million in profit, growth is a lot better than getting into a company when it's already at billions and billions in profit. So you can experience that.
Yeah, because it's hockey stick growth right now.
Yeah.
So you're kind of coming on the ground floor, and you feel like that was a big part of why you're able to onboard so many people.
Yeah, I do think so. And honestly, just super grateful for the leadership I had in Solar Pros for just putting me in the position to be able to do so and believing in me to be able to, run that sort of team and spread that kind of vision.
Yeah. So you got all these dudes. Here we go. Coming out this summer. We're going to crush it. We just need some visas, kind of waiting on that. get housing locked down.
Mm-hmm. Everything is dialed.
Everything's dialed, paid for.
Yep.
And then we find out that we're not getting visas.
Yep.
And that we're not getting visas, like we're getting, it's not like we're not getting some, we're getting, is it 0?
Yep.
So you and a handful of guys are, you know, your top guys, your top leaders are in a situation of like, obviously this is a painful thing. It's like, you know, things aren't going to plan. And typically in door-to-door, dude, like that will derail a guy.
Yeah.
It's such an environment of entitlement of like, no, you said this, so like it has to be that way, that guys don't respond well to change, let alone massive change like that.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, talk me through that. Like, because from my perspective, you have responded incredibly well. You guys just basically said, you know what, let's control what we can control. Let's get out to Texas and let's start recruiting, and who cares kind of thing. Obviously, it took a little time to get to that, but dude, talk us through that.
Yeah, so it was obviously really energizing having that growth and recruiting all those people and just building that team. It was really exciting for so many people, right? Not just myself. There was so many people really excited about this. There was people that, you know, were moving countries for this. There's people that were moving, you know, across the country or across, you know, the Pacific Ocean for this, right? People coming from Europe and stuff. So a lot of planning went into that, and a lot of, you know, promises and all of excitement went into that. So it sucked, obviously, hearing that we weren't, you know, going to be able to get visas. But like you said, you have to just focus on what you can and can't control. And I kind of looked at different business stories when there was massive layoffs in certain companies, and how these companies adapt to those sort of situations and how the employees adapt to those certain situations. So telling over 100 people that, you know, they no longer have a job isn't easy at all. When you care about the people, right? Because these aren't, you know, just a random group of 100 people. There's people that I'm connected with one way or another, that we all share, you know, the same vision of what we want, and essentially that's, you know, being able to be a part of the U.S. solar industry. So it's pretty heartbreaking, you know, having to communicate that to everybody. Like, it sucked. And
oh man,
I think the fact that I took that responsibility upon myself to, you know, craft the program into perfection, and the way that we wanted it to be was the best possible sales experience anybody could have. So yeah, just working on that and having that vision, and then it not working out because of legalities was frustrating. But essentially, you know, we still had that core group that was just so bought in on the vision that they couldn't let go of it, right? I've seen a video, I think it's Alex Hormozy again, where he talks about this cycle of entrepreneurship, where he's like, you know, there's, when you first get started, there's you know, this optimism, this false optimism, where you're like, this new thing, it's going to be really great, and it's going to be awesome, we're going to make so much money, and I see Josh Holland doing really well, and I want to be like Josh Holland, I'm going to be like Josh Holland. And, you know, you have this uninformed optimism, and it's growing really well, and then you realize that, hey, this is tougher than I thought. So now you go from uninformed optimism to informed pessimism. And that's usually where people quit, right? Usually
So
where
well
people
said.
quit is right at that stage where they're like, oh, this is harder than I thought. But we realized, that core group realized, like, if we're able to get through this cycle of informed pessimism, now we know what the difficult part is, right? We can't get lower than this low. We've already experiencing, you know, the hardest thing we could possibly experience. So we might as well just take what we learned and just continue to push through, rather than go back to uninformed optimism. Right? And, oh, this opportunity is better, or bouncing around or pivoting. So I feel like pushing through rather than pivoting, and not quitting is one of the main reasons why we've had success, and just kind of being stubborn about our vision and our goals. But luckily, man, we had a lot of great help from Solar Pros, right? Like, for our core guys, we were able to sit down with the legal team and Solar Pros and figure out a way to make sure we do have visas for this summer and in the future, long term. And it didn't work out, you know, on a large scale, but luckily we still had, you know, some great core leadership that were still involved. And, you know, myself and Hisham, we basically just came down, and we're like, you know what, these 100+ people that we couldn't bring, it's unfortunate, and we'll try to, revisit this in the future. But for now, let's, Taylor McCarthy says it right, like build it and they will come. So we just went to, our market in Texas, and we started building, and,
Dude,
we're 3 or 4 weeks in now.
I have so much respect for that. One, I've experienced not like that, but similar drawbacks.
Yeah.
In my career multiple times, but the burden and like the pain of that is, dude, it is hard to see other people do really well when you're putting in the work.
Yeah.
And then not getting it. And it really does, hard times really expose character.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like to me, so many people would just be like, hang it up, go look for something different. Didn't work out, wish it did. But like the fact that you guys just came out here, you just start recruiting, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you've picked up how many guys so far?
In the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've gone from 2 to about 25.
Dude, yeah. I mean, guys are struggling to go from 5 to 10,
mm-hmm.
and they have all of the assets in the world, and you guys have this undeniable mindset of like, okay, like there's just a different way to do the same thing that we already had planned on doing.
Yeah.
And you're figuring it out, and you guys are crushing. You're already getting installs, and dude, let alone like let's add a layer here. Like you didn't have like Texas probably wasn't the first pick. Yeah. I mean, it's been slapped, dude. Like there's alarms, there's pests, there's freaking meat salesmen out there still. Mm-hmm. And because you guys had already gotten housing for this massive group, it's like Texas is the spot.
Yeah, it's like we booked 30 apartments and or 40 apartments with like 3 or 4 bedrooms in each,
dude.
And we're like, okay, we got to find a way to fill these up.
So here we are, and you guys are crushing Texas. I mean, man, like there's just so many layers to that I have a lot of respect for you guys.
Thank you, man.
That is not easy to do, and I have no doubt, bro, that you guys are on to big stuff. Because if you can handle that, guys that have had it easy, the second they get a medium storm, little level 2 hurricane, like they're gonna be gone.
Yep.
And dude, like anything you face from now on is gonna be pretty easy.
It's gonna be a lot easier. Yeah, correct. When you've been through the trials and tribulations, and I think the reason why people are attracted, because we've had people come from all over the country to our team in Texas. We have people from Houston, Dallas, Nebraska, Minnesota, people coming from Florida, like all over the place, Canada, obviously. So having the different people come in from all these different places, and then, having our core leadership being from Canada, I think gave us a little bit of an edge, because we've been on the sidelines for the last 6 or 7 months, right? Like we're just building and, basically anticipating the summertime. And we're just watching, you guys crush it. And we're watching all these different records being broken and all these people making all this money. And, we were on the sidelines. So we almost critique, the people that have the opportunity to be here year round and don't take full advantage of it. So we're like, okay, while we're here, there's major urgency to make it happen.
It's all perspective.
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind with it. I've been in the industry for a while, over a decade, and I've seen so many times, even myself, dude, guilty of just not responding well.
Yeah.
And then responding well, or like guys just being broken by a circumstance. And like everyone has their story. Everyone has their thing. But the guys that get it done and that rise are resilient and relentless, dude. Like they just are.
Yeah.
And it's such a key indicator of future leaders to me. So, and it's that I can't remember who says this one, but it's like the story of like that Chinese farmer. I don't know if you've heard that word. I'm gonna butcher this. So you guys watching that, you're like, that is not how it goes. But I think you'll get the point. I think it goes like there's this. I think it's a farmer, dude. Okay. And something like happens to his crops, and everyone's like, "Oh no!" Like they're in a drought or something. It's like, "Oh no!" Like, dude, like your crops are drying up, and like this is a horrible experience. And he's like, "Well, maybe."
Yeah.
And then they get a ton of rain, right? And then everyone's like, "Oh, this is so great.
Mm-hmm.
Your crops are, it's going to rebound. Like everything's going to be good." And he's like, "Well, maybe."
Yep.
And then it floods the crops, right? And then that flood causes these wild horses to come down. And they're like, "Oh, like look at these wild horses. You guys have these horses. This is great." He's like, "This must be awesome." Like, "Well, maybe." And then his son rides the horse and gets bucked off. And it breaks his leg, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is horrible! Like, your son's hurt. Like, this is a horrible situation." He's like, "Well, maybe." And then the country has to go to war, and they're coming in to enlist young men, and his son can't go. So now he's like, "Oh, no, now this is great. Your son has a broken leg. He can't go to war." And the purpose is like, dude, you just don't know. So all you can do is just respond to what's in front of you.
Correct.
And just keep moving forward and
assume a good situation out of it.
Yeah. Dude, I think what you said about the initial optimism and then being able to grow through that when you actually come through your first pain point, that is for young guys like going through it, man, like regardless of where you're at in door to door or whatever, like just entrepreneurship alone, just life in general. Like, dude, you're going to get that with marriage. You're going to get that with your kids. It's that, can you push through? I think that's what life is about. Whole scale.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's a huge tip. And that's such a huge tip because there's so many people in the solar industry that go from opportunity to opportunity, and nobody wants to do that. Right? Like nobody actually wants to bounce around. But when you actually find, that thing that you did your due diligence and this is the right opportunity for you, it's still going to be tough. You're still going to have that cycle of uninformed optimism. So I think it's important to like recognize where you're at on that cycle, and just be brutally honest with yourself, right? Like, the way I'm taking action, is that am I coming from a place of uninformed optimism, or am I coming from a place of like absolute, certainty? And I feel like you don't get that absolute certainty until, you've pushed through and, you've kind of made your way to the other side of that wall. But you'll never know until you try, right? If you just continue to go back to the uninformed optimism over and over and over, people do that for decades. Yeah, they do that for their entire career. And it's like, you could have been so close, but you just don't know because you didn't push through.
It's the 3 feet from gold concept. It's the same thing. It's I feel like the people that are like that, they have a low sense of self-confidence because like subconsciously, I've given up or I haven't pushed through. Obviously there's a point where like enough's enough and like you need to make a change. But the answer isn't over here.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's probably something in the same direction that you're already heading. It just might alter a little bit. But man, that's remarkable. So now you guys are out there cranking. I mean, you're getting like a hat trick. Seems like every day. You guys are absolutely moving mountains. What's your vision, man? Like where you want to take this thing?
Yeah, man. Right now, it's just really just producing as much as possible and focusing on production. I mean, we've got some great leaders on the team. Hisham Mohammed, he's leading us with I think almost 30 deals this month.
It's incredible.
He's on the top of the scoreboard every day. We've got 3 or 4 out of the top 10 closers in the company, at our team right now.
Since you started.
Correct.
That's incredible.
In the month of May. 2 of the top 10 setters on the team, and just having that like winning culture of consistently seeing our names and our team name on the scoreboard is energizing for everybody else. But the main thing is, as well as we have a lot of rookies, because we, all the people that we had that were experienced didn't get visas. So we started with a lot of rookies.
Yeah, there's just another layer to it. It's like, all right, well, I guess we'll start with
yeah. Here we go. And that's super energizing. I don't know when's the last time you kind of worked with a rookie one-on-one for like a few weeks, but seeing them start to figure out like how everything works is extremely energizing. And it's inspirational seeing, some guy that had zero, direct sales experience come in and do like $200,000 in revenue in a week, where some companies are struggling to do that annually. And just figuring out like how money works and all these different things that you figure out, and the personal development that comes with this job. Watching that, gives a lot of us inspiration. So we learn from our rookies all the time, and we try to, imitate their, learning mindset and how much of a sponge they are. So right now we're just focused on them, just helping them hit their goals. And with that, we'll hit ours. And in the future, definitely back to where we were a few months ago, right? Like in the very near future, every day, every week, it seems like there's people joining the team. And there's a break-off team in Southern Texas, but just major expansion, man. Major expansion is the vision. Obviously, partner pool is the vision. And just continuing to get as many people involved with the vision as possible, because, we could have probably a 2 or 3 hour conversation about why solar is the best opportunity out there for young men and women. And I think it's sometimes you don't want to shout at the top of the mountain your wins and losses and stuff like that, because you just don't feel like talking about it.
Yeah.
But I feel like with what we're doing, it's so important, and we should treat it as our life's work. And like Brett Bushy says, right, you should treat it as gospel and really just share it with as many people as possible. So that's the future, just sharing what we've done and the success that we've had with as many people as possible, finding more people to duplicate, finding more people to learn from, and yeah, that's where we're going.
Dude, remarkable. I feel like, what do you feel like has been added to your life, or how do you have the perspective that you have? Where did you learn that to respond to a challenge, or something like going from 130 reps to 2?
Yeah.
Where do you feel like that comes from for yourself? Like, I feel like that's just you, or I feel like it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's tough to just understand your programming and be like, this is why I am this way and this caused me to be this way. It's tough to do that, but when you actually intentionally try to look back and learn why you are the way you are, there are some answers in there, right? And I've found that sports was a big one. My brother was a year older than me. I always played on, his team. So I was always like the younger guy on the team, kind of had like an underdog mentality, always competed with my brother. Growing up, he was a lot better than me at basketball. So always had somebody to like chase. And then getting to the point where I started getting good, and, now I had a growth spurt and I can dunk the ball now. Yeah. So it's like just seeing that development and overcoming the challenge. I think that was a lot of fun growing up and learning how to do that. And another thing is just, where I come from Libya in North Africa, and it's a pretty tough place. I have most of my family, over 90% of my family lives there, and so definitely a third world environment. So hearing the stories, obviously I was just there last month, but being there and seeing certain stuff, or hearing stories about just absolute tragedies that happen in places where people aren't as privileged, it definitely makes this a lot easier, right? Like,
yeah, I'll say that.
If you've been through, a lot of tough stuff, and then the toughest challenge you have to face is, going from projecting 20 million in revenue to 2 million in revenue, like that's not a big deal.
Life's pretty good.
Yeah, life is sweet. So, man, I just think I'm just super blessed to be here, super grateful for the opportunity. And it's like depression, for example, somebody that went through the same thing where they put their reputation on their back and recruited all these people and lost everything. It's like they could have easily been, depressed or upset or went down the wrong path. But it's like depression as an illness, it's if you define it, it's just constantly programming negative thoughts into your mind, which causes physical illness. But you can do the same thing to get a different outcome. You can program your mind with positive thoughts to get physically well, rather than the other way around. So yeah, just trying to program, the right things into my mind, and trying to be cautious of, programming the wrong things. Dude,
that's such an interesting way to, talking about like programming. Like I've always seen, I've related that stuff to, some of the concepts in Law of the Harvest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've like dug into like the main points of that, but that's basically, if your Law of the Harvest is like you reap what you sow, right? Which is farming concept. It's I plant seeds and I'll reap them. And there's a couple of concepts. It's like, one, when you plant something, the benefits aren't the next day.
Yeah.
It's in a different season was when you reap the reward of what you planted. But, you know, and there's all these concepts, but one of them is what you, like, to preserve what you've sown, you preserve it, and like to be able to keep the good, you have to weed out the evil, because the evil comes naturally.
Yes.
Which is negativity in my mind. Like, you have your garden, you have these fruits, you have these vegetables, all these things that that's your mind, and you have to tend to those things, and they'll grow, and that's great. But inevitably, what's going to come are weeds.
Yep.
Weeds come regardless. If like, they just come. Like, you have to weed your weeds, and that's that negativity. The worst thing to see is like someone who puts in all of the work, plants all of the seeds, grows all these things, but they don't weed their weeds, and they can't do anything.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, it's just as important, because negativity comes naturally. Optimism is forced.
Yeah.
Almost. You know what I mean? It's like, I think it's meant to be that way. It's just like weeds. You don't have to do anything and weeds will grow.
Yep.
You have to do a whole lot to get whatever you want to grow in your crop.
That's right.
And I think you're saying the same thing with how you're programmed. So it's like, dude, you're just constantly weeding the weeds out of being aware of like what you're actually thinking. And it's crazy that that's always the difference maker. Everyone focuses on like, oh, how does he sell, or how does he do this, or like, how'd you recruit those people? It's like, dude, he knew what he wanted.
Yeah.
He was striving for it, and like, it was clear path, and he's paying attention to what he's thinking about. He's doing the things, the small mindset things that actually pay dividends down the road.
Yep.
So when you do run into a situation like that, I know you were upset, dude, but it's like, it's right. It's okay to be upset. It's just, how are you going to respond to that?
Yep.
And so many guys just can't do that, but then there's so many guys that can.
And it's unfortunate that some people go through this and they're not in the proximity of the right people, versus going through this here at Solar Pros. I can talk to you, and you've had a similar experience. I could talk to Matt, Camp, Chris, Josh. A lot of these people have been through these different cycles of entrepreneurship and direct sales and whatnot. So just learning from that experience, right? I'm not the first person to go through this. I'm not the first person to overcome that challenge. So yeah, just realizing that the world isn't against you, right? And other people have gone through bigger challenges, and you could just choose to learn from them.
Yeah, dude. Any last things like for a new up and coming leader, manager? Like, I mean, we've talked a lot about like responding to opposition, but I mean, is there anything that you would say for a guy like wanting to do what you're doing? I want to lead teams. I want to be able to grow and be an empire builder. Like, what would you say are the main things that they should focus on?
Yeah, so I think it's three main things. The first one is finding the right mentor. And it's the emphasis isn't just getting a mentor, but finding the right mentor. And then finding the right person to compete with, and finding somebody to duplicate yourself in. So it has to be the right person, though. You can't just find three people and okay, this guy's my mentor, this person I'm going to compete with, and this person's the one I want to duplicate myself into. It has to be the right people. So what that would look like is finding, a mentor that has been through certain challenges that you can relate to, and knows how to get you to where you want to go. Somebody who's already done it. Finding somebody to compete with. It has to be the right person to compete with. Right? A lot of people choose the wrong enemy. I don't know if you've read Choose Your Enemies Wisely.
Dude, it's so good.
Great book by Patrick Bet-David.
It's so good.
But sometimes, for rookies, for example, they go in and they try to compete with, other rookies on the team. But it's like, once you've already outsold them, find a better enemy, find somebody better to compete with, find the right person to compete with. So it could be on a company level. Once you overcome that, look on an industry level, then, think bigger and better. And
I think to that point, because he talks about this in the book, that I'm all about this. Like, he talks about the logical side of that. Yeah. Find someone like in this level, but it's got to be emotional, dude. Emotional. It's got to get you fired up, dude.
Yeah. And if you don't have the right competitor, where as soon as you think about them, you start feeling like I'm not doing enough.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like you don't have enough drive.
Dude, you got to find that.
I don't know how
huge.
people can work hard without that. Like if I didn't have that person in my head and I'm thinking about them every day, like I don't know
right
how
now,
I would
dude.
be able to work as hard as I do. But yeah, so finding the right mentor, finding the right person to compete with. I think the most important one is duplicating yourself into somebody else. Because yeah, this is such a giving industry, right? There's no best kept secrets. There's no, it's new money. It's not oil and gas back from the 1800s that's super gate kept, or the banking industry or this or that. So the information is out there. What you learn, in order to help, if you know how to make $100,000 a month, helping somebody else do that isn't going to take anything away from you, right? We're at 5% market penetration. So the industry has a lot to offer, and there's so much more to grow. So yeah, finding somebody to duplicate yourself in. And I think if you find the right person on all three levels, it's just the perfect balance for success.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great advice, dude.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Use it.
Yeah, that is money. Yeah, I think guys, I mean, you just got focused. Like you get those pillars in place, let the other stuff come, but that drive by choosing your enemy wisely, being able to duplicate yourself into someone else.
Yep.
That's going to help you expand, and you're just going to add a ton of value to them so they can then go do that to other people.
Correct.
And then you got to cut the learning curve down by following and being mentored by people that have done exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, that one's huge.
That one's big time. And
you should pay for it too.
Yeah. Dude, you hear it all the time. That's what's so funny in this job is all of it is slant. Like, dude, any sales guy, any guy probably watching this, like their Instagram feed is motivation and Harmonzi and all these guys saying all the right stuff, but it's like, man, like just take it and actually do it. It's like that part. It's so cool to get energized by it, but like put pen to paper, like design this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like the second someone does that, like those are the guys that separate so fast. Whereas most people just wander.
I think the issue is ego a little bit, because when somebody feels like, I'm doing all the right things, they're not in a vulnerable position where they're open to learning, but vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation. So, you have to kind of put yourself in that place where, hey, I don't know everything, and just be open to learning.
Dude.
Yeah.
Well said. Hameed, my dog. Dude, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me,
this
bro.
Was
this was fun.
Beautiful podcast, dude. Like just such great content. So, yeah, man, thanks for making time. I have no doubt, dude, you guys are going to absolutely crush.
Let's go. We're chasing after you guys.
Let's go, buddy. Okay, thanks, bro.